Good morning. I'm joined by Alina today, a graduate of high school in 2017, who went on to study biochemistry at the University of Waterloo. Alina has a lot of experience in synthetic biology and in particular biochemistry, because that's what you did your undergraduate degree in, correct?
Yes, yeah.
Yes, and so now you've just recently graduated from the university.
Yeah.
And so some of the things we've been chatting about are those defining moments of when you decided biochemistry is the thing that I'm passionate about. This is the thing I want to pursue. You're also, and this is pretty amazing, a Schulich scholar.
Yeah.
So why don't we start from there? So when you were selected as a Schulich scholar, tell me, were you amazed? Were you astounded? Were you couldn't believe it? You did believe it? What? Because that's big news.
Yeah, I was really shocked. So shocked I was like scared to cross the road every day for the next week. Couldn't believe the luck I'd had already.
That's funny.
Yeah. But I was pretty excited. I was having a tough time deciding between a couple schools, but I really wanted to go to Waterloo. And so I'm glad that all worked out so that I could have a more worry-free decision about attending that school.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's it's wonderful to hear when such a spotlight is on a student, because of course you really must have been and still are very clear-minded about the reasons why you wanted to study this, and of course Schulich scholarship, it's wonderful. And so now you attended iGEM while you were in high school for 3 years, and you worked on some pretty amazing projects that were generally delivered in an extracurricular way. I mean, that is really to be attributed to your education champions, your teachers. You worked on a project to break down keratin in municipal waterways, which was one of the projects that you and your team represented at iGEM. So tell me a little bit about that project.
Yeah, so it first kind of started from some local newspaper ads talking about this issue. We moved on to find that there were some keratinases available. We also explored the issue of keratin waste in the form of chicken feathers from the poultry industry. And it just came up as a really nice idea, because you're taking this waste product, you can degrade it, and then it becomes this very nitrogen-rich fertilizer. So kind of just like a full circle moment where you're not just solving an issue, but you're creating a useful product out of it. So I think that was a really cool idea for all of us to really latch on to.
I think so very much. And so we call this the SynBio project. Right?
Yes.
So what does SynBio mean? Because a lot of people are like, okay, what does that mean? What is SynBio or synthetic biology?
Yeah, I think it's been a while since I've tried to define it, but yeah, by and large, synthetic biology is in a way kind of like a rebranded genetic engineering. So a lot of it is putting new genes in different organisms, or perhaps even manipulating the genes themselves in the same organism. So maybe you have one enzyme in E. coli, but you want it to do something slightly different. So that would be one example. But yeah, it's very varied. Really anything where you're using biology as a tool is the key. So you're not just studying biology, you're using it for a purpose.
Yeah, that's a great definition. And in the case of the keratin or the keratinase project, I mean, for those people who are tuning in, keratin in our municipal waterways is a big problem, because of course all the sludge attaches, right, to hair and feathers, and the hair and the feathers don't easily biodegrade. And so you get these, I remember reading a few years ago about this, what was called a fatberg in, I don't know if you saw that, in, I think it was in London. And like this 1,000-pound, fatberg of sludge had to be craned out of municipal waterway. Of course, it's very expensive because it causes a lot of damage. So there's like a really serious real world application to this. Tell us about your team. So, 7 people, 10 people, 5 people.
Yeah, it did change a bit. I think in the first year we were maybe around 15. Then some of the subsequent years we were 6 students. So that was really small. And definitely a very different atmosphere. And then in our last year, we were back up to like maybe 15, 20. So yeah, definitely have had it in all ranges from 5 to 25.
One of the, I know because MindFuel has worked very much with your school to pilot a lot of our programs. So, I mean, this project was initially introduced to the academic staff at your school, who brought Geek Starter, Tech Futures Challenge into the student population. And one of the requirements that we have in our programming is that the solutions that are being ideated to real world problems are done so in teams, because in the real world, solutions to big problems are never done by one person. It's teamwork, it's collaboration. It requires diversity, diverse thinking, and it really does help the iterative process of advancing the project. And of course, there's many cycles of fail. But those failure cycles are really important. And it's something that any student in Canada will say in a strict curricular setting, failure is not good, right? No, students don't want to fail. They want to perform and, be assessed as a high grade. So this program allowed your team to go through an iterative fail cycle. Do you understand? Do you reflect now? Because that was, 5, 6, 7 years ago. Do you think that was a valuable thing to be able to go through iterative fail cycles?
Yeah, I do think it was. Not even necessarily just for our team, but one of the kind of special parts about our keratin waste project is that we kind of picked up the idea from another iGEM team. So previously, an undergraduate team had worked on it out of England. We kind of took something that wasn't working from their project and tried to get it to work. So I think that really opened up my eyes to kind of what the scientific process looks like. Yeah, you're collaborating not just with your team, but with other teams across the world. And you're all trying to build up on what each other have done.
Right. That's another key point, because iGEM, everything is open, right? You're sharing, and the idea is to create a growing body of knowledge, a growing body of evidence that helps propel that particular field of science and the specific applications that teams across the world are dealing with, right?
Yeah.
And then you went on to participate in iGEM at university as well. Although I know you shared it was online because of COVID, right?
Yeah, some of it.
Yeah. So it's not quite the same. We all know nothing's quite the same. Those experiential learning moments are not quite the same when they're online, but out of necessity, we made it work. But how did you find the difference, or was there a difference between your post-secondary participation compared to your high school participation?
Well, definitely in university, we had a much bigger team at Waterloo, so 30 to 50 students.
Yeah.
And so everyone really did kind of get to be more of a specialist in one topic rather than a generalist if you're only 6 people on the team. So that was really different. But it was also kind of cool because we got to apply more of our coursework into our projects. and we got to apply like specific skills that we learned on co-op terms. And so in a way, I feel like it was less of searching and learning and trying to understand, and more just like, how can we apply what we've learned so far? Which I think was a really fun experience, to kind of feel like we did know a little bit and then just get to go with that. So it felt, a bit more powerful, I guess.
Yeah, very much so. But your own development, of course, advances year after year after year. So, your own ways of thinking, as well as I'm certain your peers also have, developed very advanced ways of thinking. So, this has been just wonderful to get your perspective. And as we celebrate 10 years of youth innovation, I mean, MindFuel is so passionate about giving youth the tools and the opportunity to really sort of pursue their inner innovator. And your story is so compelling and very persuasive. And I think anyone who hears about your experiences will say, hey, I can access the innovation sector. And, that's something that I'm going to do. And so I want to thank you so much for taking some time and chatting with us. And we'll talk again soon, because I know you've come back to mentor in many of our programs. And it's just been a pleasure to hear about your journey. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you too.